Good evening on Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. It's going to be a long show. I believe this is going to be a long show. I've been overwhelmed archiving information related to Candace Owens, the American podcaster, personality, influencer, Candace Owens. Because as I enthusiastically encouraged people, I'm not doing this because of some particular interest in Candace Owens or dislike of her or support of her. But every once in a while, an opportunity presents itself where you can see, I believe, behind the curtains of the machinery of the stage, which is used to influence populations, influence nations, influence peoples. Every once in a while, there's a cosmetic failure. There's a clothing failure. There's a stage failure. Something happens unexpected. Somebody forgets their lines, and suddenly, through a chain of events, you can see where the cameras are. You can see where people's notes are stored on the floor. Suddenly, all the mechanics become visible because of a couple of unexpected events. And that does happen. And one of the reasons why you'll see so many people who are on the stage right now, in particular in social media and the new form of media, of news which comes through online media and podcasting, is many of them have a background in improv, is because that's their background. Their background is to have a general script, not a strict script, not a scene-by-scene script, but a general idea. And then they have to role play. I think that's probably for a long period of time. You can imagine how it would be easy to it would potentially be more easy to successfully act if you had short scenes with a lot of camera cuts where you can constantly, people can practice, they can rehearse things, they could say it multiple times, but when, and if they know exactly what they need to say. But when the rules are loosened and when the camera runs longer, there's just no way people can remember, full, 20-minute conversations. So the art of improv is you're given a situation and you actually have to act out. You have to role play it. You have to become that person and make decisions real time as if you are that person. And there is it was a theater called there still is called, in the Los Angeles area. I believe it's Los Angeles area. You can search it up, called The Groundlings, Groundlings. And The Groundlings is where Phil Hartman, I believe Kathy Griffin, Roseanne Barr, and Jimmy Kimmel, and there's a list of hundreds of people who have specialized in improv, went to this theater. I don't know if I could be very good at improv. I find it very intimidating, having to pretend to be someone. And then just be comfortable being that person, not constantly reevaluating myself. It's a very unique form of acting that requires, I think, a lot of practice. Anyways, there is a lot of improvisation that goes on. But getting back to the Candace Owens situation here, I think with improv, because people don't have to remember all of their lines, okay, it's sort of expected because people are constantly, because they are doing improv, they are constantly in a situation where they are always making up for the fact that nothing can go according to a script perfectly, because by definition, people who specialize in improvisational comedy don't have a formal script. And I mean like word for word, blink by blink, nudge by nudge, movement by movement script. It's a little bit more free-flowing. So if something doesn't quite work out, sometimes it can actually come out even better than anything you ever would have written. In fact, that's one of the magic of Saturday Night Live, is there have been some of the funniest scenes ever captured on Saturday Night Live. And it's not as good as I think as it used to be, but used to be things when someone really went off script and then everyone was just caught by surprise. And you actually see the actors, like, they're breaking themselves up, because it's just so brilliant, some of the things that happen. So, but when you're not doing strict improv, okay, sometimes things can happen that don't go according to script. And When things don't go according to script, sometimes you can see behind the scenes. Now, these examples I just given here were all in the context of actually being on a stage. But if everything is a stage, and I mean when fights are acted out on the street, when you see protesters fighting each other, when you see sometimes, God strike me down, I'm so sorry, but other terrorist events or war events, when things are done on that stage and then things are reported through the media, if they're acted out, it's still kind of a stage. All right, it's still kind of a stage. And there's an expectation that they're setting up a situation. Situation is going to result in certain things happening. And based upon those events and based upon the political discourse that happens, based upon people being angry or upset that something did or didn't happen, political change can happen. Geopolitical change can happen. People may vote a different way. Whether or not that helps or not, that's another story altogether, another topic. But anyways, you can imagine if there were a bunch of articles over the course of a year seeded into the New York Times, getting people prepared for something. You see government officials saying things on congressional floors, getting people prepared for something, and then something doesn't happen according to plan. Well, improv can only take care of so much because it's so well planned, right? Suddenly, for a moment, there needs to be a readjustment. And suddenly if people are capable, if they're willing to look at that one moment and realize there's a moment where something doesn't line up, they can see all the cables, they can see all the notes, the floors, the booms, the all kinds of things going on behind the scenes. And suddenly the jig is up. They get it. I believe Candace Owens had at least a couple of moments in her life where I can see, I allege, things didn't go according to plan. I do not believe she was ever meant to be exactly where she is right now, doing exactly what she's doing right now. I think at one point she, maybe it wasn't necessarily any fault of her own. I don't think she was trying to be malicious, but did some things that were so bad that she wasn't going to have any career at all, any future at all. But she was roped back in. So that's why I'm so interested in Candace Owens, is because of this opportunity. Now, because of the nature of the way Candace Owens got pulled into such visible, the biggest stage of them all, okay, the biggest stage of them all, there are individuals involved in that who are enormously important politically, historically, and of course, saying that someone's important historically might simply mean that they were the actor that we recognized of being important in the past. Okay? So if we are to say that all presidents now are actors, fine. Well, then we have to, you open to the possibility that, well, maybe the previous president was an actor, and maybe the one before that was an actor. Maybe, why should we assume that one was never an actor? Or maybe at some point there was a transition of people that are actually doing the work to people who are, acting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. I don't know when it started, but I think it's fair to say that, with Reagan, he was an actor. Trump did some acting. He was I know he had his series, which was kind of improvisational in some ways. But, having, a couple of seconds here or there on a film, I don't know if it makes him really an actor, but at least not in the way that Robert De Niro would be an actor. But anyways, or Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a real actor. But if there's one person that I think it's important to understand, and someone that, even though he was in the news all the time when I was growing up, I really don't have a lot of background on Jesse Jackson. So I'm doing a bit of a crash course on Jesse Jackson right now. And I think I'm going to start today's show by showing a couple of 1 and 2 minute, 1's 3 minute video clips of Jesse Jackson. I think I have 3 of them lined up. Okay. There's a book I have here written by Andrew Rice, which I still have not read. I wanted to read this book. I believe it's a narrative control book. As I've said, when books are written after the fact, usually it's about lining the pieces up in such a way to create narratives. I'm always more interested in books that are written before something happens, especially if it doesn't go according to plan. Then you get a lot of juicy insights from it. Either way, this book is not written for a audience that has, let's just put it this way. This book is not written for an audience that has voted for Donald Trump. That's the safest way to say it. I don't know if it was written to target people who just are filled with Trump derangement syndrome. Maybe we should send a copy to Jonathan Cooey. I think Jonathan Cooey is coming down with a bad case of Trump derangement right now for his birthday. Happy birthday, brother. But this book here may not be written, or may be written for people who always have TDS, or maybe this book is written to find people who have had lukewarm support for Donald Trump in the past and now are thinking of voting for somebody else or something like that. But for hardcore Trump supporters, this is not your book. That doesn't mean it's not a useful book. But let's look at the cover here. The cover here only has one black person on it. Now, I'm not really big into always making sure that you have a profile of people that matches the current demographics of the United States. But approximately 13% of the U.S. population is black. And I know it's complicated because it's mixed race and so on. But so in some ways, the black population of the U.S. is underrepresented in here because we have Janet Reno, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore. Oh, you have little Gonzalez. Actually, it might actually be not too far off. It's only off by a little bit. Harvey Weinstein, Donald Trump. It looks like Cheney and Bush. So this book titled The Year That Broke America is really about the year 2000. And there's all of this political intrigue that's happening, all of these things that are happening on TV. And it's interesting that of this book, I'm not saying that I agree with this list, but let's just go with the author Andrew Rice's interpretation, okay? We have Martin Luther King. I'm sorry about that. Jesse Jackson, who played a big role in the life of Candace Owens. We have Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who I guess Candace Owens decided to dedicate her life, at least at one point, and I don't say dedicating her life, but Candace Owens made a big decision to kind of come out as a conservative and support Trump. I think there's a possibility that she's known Trump before he was president, or at least met him. Possibility because Trump and Jesse Jackson have an interesting relationship that goes back many years as well. It may have been purely political. I don't know. It might have been hostile at some times, but they've had plenty of dinners together, Jesse Jackson and Donald Trump, going all the way back to 2000, 2001. Now, also on here is Harvey Weinstein. And Harvey Weinstein is curious because Harvey Weinstein, the only person that's been able to get a Harvey Weinstein interview in the last 8 or so years has been Candace Owens. I don't know who else she turned down, but she turned down a lot of people. Harvey Weinstein turned a lot of people down and gave his interview opportunity to Candace Owens. 3 of them, actually. And then after the fact, after a follow-up interview, 2 days after that, Candace Owens then has an interview with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson used to work for Harvey Weinstein. Now, also on here is Hillary Clinton over here, right? I'm having to do like things backwards here, like in a mirror. Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton played a big role in getting Carter elected president in 1976. And at that time, she became really good friends with a guy in Rhode Island named Mark Weiner, Weiner. Mark Weiner went on to run all the White House scheduling for President Carter. And he was only 24 years old. Mark Weiner, after then, went on to start a small manufacturing company in the state of Rhode Island, one of the smallest U.S. states, both politically and population-wise, where he had exclusive rights to produce all merchandise for the Democrat National Party, Democrat National Committee. It seems like a bit of a tangent, but hold on there, because Mark Weiner's daughter, Zoe Weiner, is the person that Candace Owens gets to start her company with. Huh. So and the odds of Candace Owens working for 2 years with Zoe Weiner and never having met Hillary Clinton is almost zero. Also, Mark Weiner so close with Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't exactly know how they met, but Mark Weiner became one of the best lifelong friends of Jesse Jackson. In fact, Jesse Jackson told his own children that the godfather of their own children, meaning the godfather of Jesse Jackson's grandchildren, was going to be Mark Weiner of Rhode Island. So in some ways, I can make a point that 60%, almost, over 50% of the people on this picture have a connection with Candace Owens. Now, the Jesse Jackson one is, as I'm going to show the videos now, very curious. Just a few more things to note about Jesse Jackson before I start playing some of these videos here to give you some background. But we told you about Mark Weiner. The other thing is that Jesse Jackson has been very blessed to have several children. His daughter was the maid of honor for Michelle Obama. So Michelle Obama's maid of honor, friend from high school, is the daughter of Jesse Jackson. Most people don't know that. Now, Jesse Jackson has a very interesting adversarial relationship in some ways with Barack Obama, but also, of course, it's going to be a supportive relationship because Jesse Jackson ran for president. As a matter of fact, Jesse Jackson won a couple of the delegates, I think, the electors, at least in the primaries for the Democrat Party in the state of Michigan at one point. It's not like he, only got 1% of the vote. He got 23% of all Democrat votes in the primaries at one point, 1984. Also, his son, Yusef Jackson, became a pallbearer at the funeral of the now late Mark Weiner. But also, Yusef Jackson bought a magazine called Radar Magazine, which was owned before him by Jeffrey Epstein. And let's not forget that the investors in that magazine before Jeffrey Epstein, at the time of Jeffrey Epstein, include Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein working together. Let us not also forget that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and other people in Rhode Island, such as Era Magaziner, who wrote most of the national healthcare policy, wasn't passed, and the Clinton administration, were all on Jeffrey Epstein's plane together in 2003. I think Candace Owens knows a few things that she's not saying. And last but not least, one of the biggest supporters of Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, who died, might have been poisoned or killed, I don't know, before Maduro took over, and he's also a big supporter and friend of Maduro, it's Jesse Jackson. And let us not also forget that one of the biggest American political visits to Cuba to visit Castro in 1984 to negotiate prisoner releases or hostage releases was Jesse Jackson, Jesse Jackson's children, and the Mark Weiner, whose daughter Zoe Weiner starts a company with Candace Owens. So Candace Owens didn't just stroll in here. And if you go to Candace Owens' webpage, what are the big series that she's doing? She's done a series on Harvey Weinstein and a series on Jeffrey Epstein. That's a big part of who Candace Owens is. And afterwards, of course, it's Israel bad, or I don't know, the whole Charlie Kirk stuff. The other thing is Brigitte Macron. I don't know how she fits into this mess. I don't really have any particular idea on that. I do know that France right now is under a lot of is making a great big economic move towards aligning with India. I know that that's a big deal. And that's a big part of this as well. Jesse Jackson seems to also have an affinity to go to Gandhi's resting place in India. as well as let's not overlook the fact that that there was a religious follower of one of the let's just say one of the religions in India was Maduro of Venezuela. So that's also going on behind the scenes here. There's a lot of things happening that nobody seems to want to talk about. And I don't know about, and then there's Meghan Markle as well. And Meghan Markle is going to come into this scene as well. That's where it really gets nuts. But let's start off, okay? Let's start off. I'm going to scoot off into the corner here. And the first video that I'm going to play is, this is Abby Phillip. She used to be with CNN. She is, this is from, I don't know how recent this is.
Jesse Jackson and Obama actually politically, to be honest, don't have a huge amount in common, because I think Obama is way more centrist than Jesse Jackson was. However, I also think Jesse Jackson's sort of left-wing politics of the 80s actually became kind of...
And I think that's fair. I think Obama is a bit more centrist. I think that's fair.
Kind of centrist in the 2010s or whatever. I mean, just from a nuts and bolts perspective, had Jesse Jackson not changed the rules of the Democratic Party to make it easier for outsider candidates to come in and run against the establishment and still rack up delegates and still get to the convention, Obama wouldn't have beaten
This is how we beat Hillary Clinton. If it was winner take all like the Republicans have in the primaries, we wouldn't have done it.
In a way, it's like, think about...
So what she's commenting on there is, and give me a little bit of rope here. I'm not going to be able to, I mean, she didn't really articulate too clearly, but when it comes to the political primaries in the United States, on a state-by-state level, the candidate that gets the most votes in a state, do they get all the delegates for the state, or do they get a number of delegates that's sort of representative to what percentage of the vote that they got? I guess that before Martin, I keep wanting to say Martin Luther King, but Jesse Jackson, it was sort of a winner take all. So in some cases, if somebody gets like at least 15% of the votes, then they can get, I think, at least 15% of the delegates on a state level, something along those lines. Okay, it was just enough so that it was possible for a political candidate running in the primaries for the Democrat Party to for a third party, not for a third party, but for the outsider to get a few delegates and then to get an opportunity to maybe even win. And there were some changes which were encouraged, pushed through by Jesse Jackson. I haven't reviewed how much the Democrat Party of the United States pushed back on it. I think there was some negotiation. I don't think they just let Jackson do what he wanted or what he was asking for. But there was some middle ground established where it was just enough so that when Obama ran in 2008 and 2008 and 2007, in 2008, that he was able to get more support than Hillary Clinton. It was a very, very close primary in 2008. Anyways, it is in some ways true, at least according to this narrative, that Jesse Jackson paved a way for Obama. Now, if you just heard that statement, you would think, oh, he broke a race barrier. It's like, well, maybe, but a more technical way is that there were changes to the primary process in the Democrat Party, which Jesse Jackson made possible, which in turn were one of the reasons why Obama was able to secure the primaries for the Democrat Party in 2008. Else he wouldn't have been able to do it. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. Now, I think that it would be. I'm not a Jesse Jackson supporter or hater. In fact, as an analyst, I would be a terrible analyst if I had strong feelings about it one way or another, because that means I would have bias. Everybody wants bias, and one of the reasons why people listen to podcasts and shows like online shows is because they want their bias satisfied. They want to hear that they're right. And when it comes time to listen to an analyst, you want to hear that, oh, they really should have shot that person, or ICE really is the problem, or you want your bias. I'm not saying you, my audience right now, which is a superior audience, but people want to have their current ideas reinforced. It feels good. It feels good to know that you're right, that you're rooting for the winning team. That's just the way it is. Anyways, let's listen to a little bit of Jesse Jackson from his Hope Alive speech. Now, this is running in '84. Again, he didn't win.
Keep hope alive.
He didn't win I don't know if this was at the Democrat National Convention, where, of course, he wasn't he wasn't able to, he didn't win the Democrat primary, but or if it was during the election process. But this was in 1984.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive on tomorrow night and beyond. Young America, hold your head high now. We can win. You must never stop dreaming. Face reality, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't need to
but
be.
Don't stop with the way things are. Dream of things as they ought to be. Dream. Face pain. But love, hope, faith, and dreams will help you rise above the pain. Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress. But you keep on dreaming, young America. Dream of peace. Peace is rational and reasonable. War is irrational in this age and unwinnable. Dream of teachers who teach for life and not for living. Dream of doctors who are concerned more about public health than private wealth. Dream of lawyers more concerned about justice and the judgeship. Dream of preachers who are concerned more about prophecy than profiteering. Dream on the high road with sound values. You must never surrender to inequality. Women cannot compromise ERA or comparable word.
Equal rights
Women
amendments.
are making 60 cents on the dollar to what a man makes. Women cannot buy meat cheaper. Women cannot buy bread cheaper. Women cannot buy milk cheaper. Women deserve the...
So you have people getting riled up. And it is Reverend Jesse Jackson. So he is a preacher. He can preach and he can sell really well. So I want you to just get a feel for that, so I mean, there's a lot of idealism in there, and then it's compelling, if you have to listen to, another stiff, white politician, it's just, blah, blah, blah. You get, suddenly you get someone with some heart on there, but it's like, well, but anyways, now I'm getting into judging political philosophies and whatever. But I just want you to know that he came kind of close to winning a primary and is kind of a very big deal in the history of the United States over the last 50 years. Jesse Jackson is. I think that's, if you were to talk about 100 Americans, that whether or not they really did the big things or if at least on the stage of the people that you talk about, Jesse Jackson would oftentimes make that list. Okay, so we had a moment. There was a hot mic moment in, I forget what year it was, where I guess Jesse Jackson said some things, and he's still alive, but he's, his health is not that great right now. He's in his 70s. He said something that was caught on the hot mic on Fox News. This was before Obama became president, I believe. where Jesse Jackson says, talking down the black people on this. And then, of course, all hot mic moments can be staged. But I think it's fair to say that Obama doesn't quite, he's a little bit different than Jesse Jackson was. Maybe Jesse Jackson had a point that maybe Barack Obama does talk down to other black Americans. That's not a point for me to make. I'll tell you what, though, he definitely chose to live in like the waspiest place on earth, which is between Nantucket Island and Martha's Vineyard. Holy moly. It's a long way from downtown Chicago. Let's put it that way. But it's a hot mic moment that I guess got Jesse Jackson in a little bit of trouble. Of course, it could have all been staged. Now, let's hear from somebody else, and then this was a Graham Benzinger. I don't know who he is. I'm assuming he's liberal. Jesse Jackson, Obama finished a 60-year race. The point here is that the election of President Obama in 2008, his term started in 2009, happened because of the barriers that were broken, different types, by Jesse Jackson.
What do you remember from the first time meeting President Obama?
His wife and my daughter Santita was classmates, and he and my son.
So Barack Obama's wife and Santia, who is one of the daughters of Jesse Jackson, were classmates, and he and my son Jesse were classmates. So there's a Jesse Jackson Jr. So Jesse Jackson Jr., I guess, was classmates with Barack Obama. So that's an awful lot of family connection right there.
Jesse, mates, and tell me how smart he was. His dad, this guy's going someplace. So we sat around the house, talk.
You said his election to the presidency was the last lap.
I'm actually kind of surprised that I knew up until 2 or 3 days ago almost nothing about how far back the family of Jesse Jackson, Barack Obama go. I'm embarrassed. I didn't know this. It's not like this is a new video, by the way. What's interesting is this video is not going to be airing on Fox News, okay? You're not going to see this video that I'm showing here. Not my video, but the video I'm showing here, this in-depth with Graham Benzinger. You're not going to see this video on Newsmax. They're not going to show it on InfoWars. They're not going to show it on any channel which does target people who would be more likely to have been a Donald Trump supporter, okay? So they're not going to see it. However, there is this word on the street, and there's this reputation right now that there's a lot of people in the Trump orbit who are conspiracists. They believe in conspiracies, and they like to do citizen research. So why, given the fact that there are so many people who hate Obama with so much energy? I don't hate Obama. Why would I? He's an American like me. I don't get it. There's some of his ideas I don't like. But why, there is a oozing, at least that's what we're supposed to believe, right? Disgust for Obama. So given the fact that there is so much that has been pushed, why hasn't it also been pushed in tandem that there's a strong relationship between Jesse Jackson, Jesse Jackson's family, and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama? I'm not saying good or bad, okay? I'm just saying I'm surprised I didn't hear about it. It's almost as if that's knowledge that is used on one side and not used on the other, which is so interesting. And it's interesting because it's this knowledge which is giving me so much insight on Candace Owens and so many other things. I would have known a lot more, a lot quicker, even quicker than I already figured it out, if this was more common knowledge on, and I'm not saying it's never been mentioned on a political right, but it's not mentioned very often, at very least. So, I'm sorry to have paused it.
Of a 60-year race. Describe what you mean by that.
54, Jim Crow becomes illegal.
54, Jim Crow becomes illegal. 55, Montgomery bus boycott.
5, the Montgomery bus boycott. 64, the Public Accommodation Bill. 65, the right to vote. 68, Dr. King killed. And really from 68 to 08, it was a 40-year run through the wilderness. So to go from slave ship to the White House, to go from the balcony in Memphis, the balcony of the White House was quite a journey. And so getting to the big house with the keys is the last step of that journey. There are fights beyond that we now see, because people can, once you don't have the keys forever, and life is a dynamic, not static. So it was to get from being denied the right to vote to having an African-American president was a long and meaningful journey.
What was the emotion of that night for you when he was elected?
Indescribable. You know, it was, I wept because it was the moment and it was the memories. I looked up on the screen where we had been in 68.
They're showing pictures of Jesse Jackson crying at the moment that Obama's on stage and waving to the crowd about his election in 2008.
During the upheaval in Chicago Democratic Convention, right in front of Ebony magazine.
Ebony magazine.
The big one. He won the big one, you know. The poor people who made it happen were not there. They couldn't afford to come to Chicago. People who paid the price with their blood and who for many years didn't have the right to vote, they couldn't afford to be there. And I long for their president. I wish Dr. King.
So, you know, it's kind of true. You need money to go to the convention. If you are an underprivileged, if you're white trash, you don't get to go there either. But if you are if you're anybody without money, you don't really get to go there. But Jesse Jackson says that he was feeling emotional because if you are a poor black American, you're not going to get to go there. And he is expressing, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but sadness that it's good for the black Americans in some ways, but it's also it still kind of was locking out people of lower income levels that Jesse Jackson would frequent. Jesse Jackson, I believe it's fair to say, spent more time with people who had less money than Obama has. Again, could also be an act. I don't know, but that is a true statement. I don't know where he lives right now, and I think his sons are all doing financially quite well compared to most Americans. So, don't think that they're living in a trailer park either right now, because they're not.
Meg Evans could have been there just like about 15 seconds, just have seen the glory of their work. It was quite an emotional moment.
Why did you decide to run?
I kind of got pushed into it. We were fighting
1984.
Thought we could win. Ted Kennedy and Mondale decided they were going to come here and campaign for Daley and Jane Byrne. We said, please don't come. This is a Democratic primary. We support you guys all the time. They said, we have to come. Daley and Byrne are our friends. We said, we must be chopped liver. So I tried to get Maynard Jackson to run. He wouldn't do it. Tried to get Andy Young to run. He wouldn't do it. I arranged somebody should run, at least in the primaries. And at some point, they began to say, run, Jesse, run. And so as I showed I was serious and not just playing, I began to run and learn how to run.
I believe it was the 88 election. You win 16 of 21 primaries and caucuses on Super Tuesday. Then you win Michigan. How much of a chance at that point do you think you have to actually get elected?
A great chance. We didn't have the money. You know, we got 1,200 delegates with $19 million. Most cost-efficient campaign ever.
So from there, I go to my Candace Owens page. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. So Candace Owens in the year 2005 and then again in 2007 filed claims of being a victim of a racially targeted, race-based hate crime, which the earlier one included being kicked by some females, and the other one included her and her family being threatened for their lives by a couple of males. And this story has come up many times because it got Candace Owens in the newspapers in 2007 and 2008. Candace Owens, this happened in Stamford, Connecticut, which is a city which is close to some of the richest areas of the United States, some of the outer suburbs of Stamford, as well as Greenwich, Connecticut. This isn't too far from where Martha Stewart lives, but downtown Stamford has some areas that are not so nice. For the most part, Candace Owens lived most of her life in Connecticut, at least up until this time, at least up until she was in her mid-20s. So I have to admit, I find it kind of pleasant to listening to her a lot because there's something about the way her sentences go, which sounds very, very Southern Connecticut to me. It's not, you don't quite get the R's of the New Yorks. You don't get the New Yorks, but you get a very fast speech. And there's a lot of things there's little things about the way she talks, which I would immediately pick up on as, you know what, that sounds like someone that grew up probably, in Fairfield County somewhere. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Just throwing it out there, the only other person that I've ever heard that speaks like that is Meghan. Meghan sounds like someone that grew up in Stamford or Greenwich and is faking a Chinese accent. That's not something that I would make up, and I've never said that about anyone else. And it is odd because Meghan did get married in Manhattan in 2014, or was it 2013, which definitely destroys her entire narrative. But anyways, let's listen to Candace Owens on the Stefan Molyneux show. There's a 1-minute clip that really matters here. Again, this is her reflecting back on her time of being a victim of these crimes. Let me listen to her. And again, this could be a really long show. I got a lot of stuff to dump out here. All I know how to do is tell the story, and let's see where it goes. Okay.
Free to use, and it takes about 5 minutes to answer basic questions and check what you qualify for. If you're a
go away. All right, here we go.
Long story short, I only knew one person in the car that night. It was a case of high school drinking, and I don't like this girl. I'm going to call her and let's shout into the phone. And the argument that I had with that friend was I was hanging out more with my boyfriend. It was something very, very petty and not a big deal, but ended up blowing up because one of the individuals in the car who I'd never met in my life was the current governor of Connecticut's son, Governor Daniel Malloy, who is a Democrat. So instantly it was front page news. I went into school the next day, told the teacher, he was like, you have to tell the principal. The principal heard it and, freaked out and called the cops. And next thing I know, I'm front page throughout Connecticut newspapers. And of course, we've got local chapters, not Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jack. They want to be there. They want to meet on the front steps and show, the face of trauma for, a Black girl. They had never spoken to me prior, but they were outside with cameras in tow because it was an opportunity for them to get their, that's their whole shtick. Long story short, I only knew one person.
So she very quickly stumbles through Jesse Jackson. Now, I don't have any photos of her with Jesse Jackson in 2007. And Jesse Jackson, as with the NAACP, or working with or alongside of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, works at a national level. He also does a couple of international things. So every single crime, and the extent of her crime, having your life threatened is serious. But when you have your life threatened by a 14-year-old who might be on Ambien, I don't know. Again, I'm not there. I'm not going to make a comment on it. You could understand, though, Candace Owens herself being, mixed race, half white, half black. I don't really understand the details. She could have been encouraged to pursue it by a teacher or a mom. there's a lot of additional circumstances that we're not made aware of, and I think it's a little bit too unfair to say that she made up the whole thing. But when you have two things make the papers before you're done with high school, it's like, well, at some point it's fair to say maybe it's you, or at least you and your family or something. But she alludes to the fact that Jesse Jackson was involved. Okay. All right. So if it was just that, I wouldn't care. If the rest of what I talked about at the beginning of the show wasn't true, and I'm going to go over that again, who cares? If she met Jesse Jackson, if she had a phone call, he was on a conference call, maybe she had, whatever, he signed a paper. I don't know. There are many black Americans that have met Jesse Jackson. It's not a crime. Jeez. So going back, I do want to highlight that Malloy, who became governor of Connecticut, it was Governor Malloy's son, the 14-year-old at the time, Candace Owens was 16 or 17, that she is making a reference to. And Malloy, Jesse Jackson was involved in the politics of Connecticut. Initially, Jesse Jackson was supporting a Democrat that was running against Malloy. Jesse Jackson was not initially a Malloy supporter. So there's also that weird dynamic where Malloy did become governor, but Malloy was kind of also not someone that Jesse Jackson liked. It's just throwing that one out there, okay? And Jesse Jackson was in the Stamford area at that time. So it's not unreasonable to think that Jesse Jackson, if he's already supporting one person to become the next governor of the state of Connecticut, a Democrat, against Malloy, and I know the timing doesn't line up perfectly, but it's only a few months off, it's not unreasonable to think that Jesse Jackson may have also stepped in and been a little bit more involved in the accusations that Candace Owens made than he otherwise typically would be. All right, so I said I'm going to get back up. I'm going to take this up a level right now. We're going to go back up a level because Jesse Jackson on this book, The Year That Broke America, okay, if he just met Candace Owens, it was involved in her claims of being a victim of a hate crime, all right, whatever. So what? It's the fact that Candace Owens starts a company with the daughter of one of his best friends. That is suddenly a statistical impossibility. Unless it's causal. So, my hypothesis, okay, and this working hypothesis is incredibly strong, is that through an introduction with Jesse Jackson around 2007, Candace Owens, she didn't necessarily have like all A's in high school. I didn't either, by the way. I had a lot of B's and C's. So, again, who cares, right? But she may have gotten an opportunity to go to University of Rhode Island. Maybe some strings were pulled by one of the best friends, one of the most trusted people of Jesse Jackson, who was Mark Weiner of Rhode Island. Mark Weiner of Rhode Island also went with Jesse Jackson to see Castro in 1984 as part of the prisoner release negotiations. Mark Weiner probably played a huge role in making funds available for Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson said in those videos that they just didn't have enough money. It's probably true. And maybe they would have had even less if it wasn't for Mark Weiner. Jesse Jackson's son, Yusef Jackson, was one of the 8 pallbearers at the funeral of Mark Weiner. At the funeral of Mark Weiner also, by the way, attended Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Matter of fact, the eulogy was delivered by Bill Clinton. Mark Weiner is a big deal. So when Candace Owens starts a company with Zoe Weiner, the daughter of this Mark Weiner, who isn't on this photograph away, there is evidence, I think, that Candace Owens was a friend, a connection, or used her experience with this hate crime allegation, and a connection to Jesse Jackson to maybe get another leg up. And I don't blame her. If there's a rope you can pull somewhere that's going to put you in a better place, as long as it's not hurting somebody, go for it. That's all fine. Candace Owens, let's get back here, okay? Let's keep walking through this here. No, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted this one here. Let's go back to the Candace Owens page here. Am I going to have to go through the Kickstarter here? Yeah, so this is the Kickstarter for Candace Owens' company in 2016. We'll get there in a minute. So after going to University of Rhode Island, starting in 2008, I think, she leaves a little bit on the early side. And she leaves in 2011, and she goes to Vogue magazine. Candace Owens goes to Vogue magazine. She doesn't finish her degree in journalism. And I think she really did what really was pursuing a career in journalism, because if you read Candace Owens' old blog posts, when she was only like 25 years old, they're not half bad. They're not half bad, really. And, she may have used Grammarly, but, if you're a good writer, you should use something like that. You should make it the strongest worded, most effectively worded, blog post possible. And I don't believe she had a lot of help writing it. So I think she's a fair writer as well. But she left college early to go to Vogue magazine. It's not like 10,000 people work at Vogue. I think the staff fluctuates between 60 to 200 people. So if you're getting an internship at Vogue, one of the most recognized fashion magazines which has ever existed on Earth, and you have an opportunity to meet Anna Wintour. Anna Wintour is the goddess of fashion. I'm not saying, she looks pretty sharp sometimes. You got to admit, okay? She runs Vogue. She should have good clothes. Anna Wintour does. But Anna Wintour is the goddess of fashion magazines. Still one of the executives at Condé Nast. Do you know how many people would like to work at Vogue as an intern? Thousands and thousands. And Candace Owens goes there with Zoe Weiner, the daughter of Mark Weiner. Best friend, one of the best friends anyways, of Jesse Jackson. In other words, but then how did Zoe Weiner get a job there? How does Zoe Weiner, even if her dad is politically connected, how does Zoe Weiner get a job at Vogue? I'm sure there's a lot of other politically connected people that would like to work at Vogue. Now, Zoe Weiner is very beautiful. Candace is beautiful. Honestly, if you're a young person, it's easier to be beautiful. But, I think most of us could say that. But let's consider this fact, okay? Let's just consider this fact. And there's a particular issue that I'm searching for here. Remember, the year is 2011, all right? The year is 2011. Candace Owens is leaving college 1 year early, I believe, to go with her friend Zoe Weiner to Vogue magazine. Two people from almost the same place going into Vogue. It's almost unprecedented. How? Well, 2011. President, CEO of Vogue is the Devil Wears Prada woman, Anna Wintour. Anna Wintour is very rich. Anna Wintour is also among the top bundlers, top financial supporters of Democrat candidates. No surprise, but Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, etc., Gore previously. Of course, if you are Anna Wintour, you are supporting Hollywood. Of course you are, right? You're connected with all the people. Harvey Weinstein. Anna Wintour is on this magazine cover from March of 2008, a magazine called Radar. There's Anna Wintour. Now, she's, 18 years ago. She's still very beautiful, but, it is what it is. And Anna Wintour's father, by the way, was also a major, major publisher. I think the new London Evening Standard or something like that. So she's from a publishing company. You know who else is from a publishing company? Ghislaine Maxwell. But we're going to get there. So I'm highlighting the fact that Anna Wintour is this massive, massive celebrity here. And here she is on the cover of Radar magazine. And the thing with the being on the cover of this Radar magazine, though, all right, in 2008 is who owns Radar, which becomes Radar Online in 2008? Who's the owners? Well, let's see. It's not always listed. Who is the owner here? Usually you have to go to like a staff page. Let's see here. Operations, general manager, interns. Surprised it doesn't list it out because I know he bought it. I believe the owner of Radar at this time, or just before this, is Yusef Jackson, the son of Jesse Jackson. Yusef Jackson has had Anna Wintour at multiple fundraising events. I don't know if Anna Wintour had much of a relationship with Jesse Jackson, but I think at the very least, Yusef Jackson has a relationship, or at least some business relationships with Anna Wintour. So also, now Candace Owens, she's leaving college early. She's going to New York City. She's going to New York City with her friend Zoe Weiner. Zoe Weiner's dad is like this with Jesse Jackson. Now she's in New York City. She's in New York City for a year. She works for a year at Vogue as an intern, presumably. She's not a senior editor. But she's there for a year, and we know that Anna Wintour has business relationships, fundraising relationships with Yusef Jackson, with Harvey Weinstein, and a whole lot of other people. And by the way, just for the record, Anna Wintour was at the wedding of Donald Trump to Melania. I think Jesse Jackson was also at the wedding of Donald Trump to Melania. I think the Clintons were also at the wedding of Donald Trump to Melania. Just saying, okay? I'm just saying. But she's there for a year. Now, Zoe Weiner is still with Condé Nast, is at Teen Vogue, and is still in the Vogue Condé Nast publishing empire. She's still there. She still blogs daily. I wonder if she knows that I'm making her even more famous right now. But after a year at Vogue magazine, now we are in the year 2012. Candace Owens leaves Vogue. And all we know is that she goes to an investing firm. That's all the information we have, that she leaves Vogue and she goes to a private, I should say more specifically, a private equity company. Now, I don't know. There's a lot of private equity companies in Manhattan, hundreds, thousands probably. Throughout this time, we have other data here. We'll get to that in a moment here. Vogue actually moved to the World Trade Center in 2014. But we don't know anything where she is for that period of time. All I know is that in 2015, Candace Owens pops up as a blogger for a little startup company called Degree180.com. So for 3 years, she goes to a mysterious place where she says she started off as an administrator in HR at a private equity company, and she worked her way up to be a vice president. Now, that could mean anything. It could be a company of 3 people, and she just said, give me the title. Or maybe it was a company of 100 people. I don't know. I don't know what company it is. But if you don't have a degree and you work for 1 year as an intern at Vogue, the reality is that your opportunities are going to be extremely limited in Manhattan. I don't care how young and beautiful you are. It's going to help, but it's only going to go so far. All right? It's only going to go so far. So who would have hired her? Who is going to hire a 23, 24-year-old didn't have her college degree finished, only worked for a year at Vogue, missed a year at college, Candace Owens. Who's going to hire her? What I do know is that she worked her way up. She said she did financially okay. I don't think she became rich, but she was probably paid well enough, especially for someone that age, okay? But also, just her door just threw my train of thought off. I'm sorry about that. Oh, I hate it when it happens. So she starts off at Vogue. She leaves Vogue. She's there. And we know that she's there for 3 years. Financially, she does okay. And I only have a couple of tiny pieces of data to go from. One is that in a blog post that she wrote in 2016, she said that she greatly admired a guy named John Mackey, who is the founder of Whole Foods supermarket in the United States. John Mackey is right now very, very rich. She also, and that's basically it. That's basically my connections. Now, another thing that I know is that after she starts this Degree 180 company, which she co-starts with Zoe Weiner, so she maintains a relationship with Zoe Weiner. That's important. So it's not like she just went there and, to Vogue following this girl, Zoe Weiner, whose father is Mark Weiner and close with Jesse Jackson. It's not like she just went there and adios. But 3 years after she leaves Vogue, where Zoe Weiner still is, Zoe Weiner gets her degree at Georgetown and then Columbia, by the way. Candace Owens, in 2015, then starts a small social media type company, Degree 180, with Zoe Weiner. So she goes back to having a relationship with Zoe Weiner. So she's still in this network. That means that whatever she did, she didn't screw up too badly, and she maintained somebody's trust. I'm going to throw out there the possibility that that there's two possibilities, okay? Well, that I think that have very strong likelihoods. Candace Owens right now is getting opportunities based upon her relationship with Jesse Jackson and people around Jesse Jackson. And that's fine. Okay? You do what you need to do. I think it's bull when people judge others by that. But there's two things here. Or there's two options here. There could be other ones, but these are my front runners, okay? One is if she is so quick to say that she knows John Mackey, and most people don't know who John Mackey is. I think she met John Mackey. And John Mackey of Whole Foods is going to be known by someone who is probably one of the richest billionaires in the United States of America who invests in supermarkets. In fact, this person has done some work with John Mackey. And that person's name is, my goodness, Ron Burkle. I think if you just go to Google, if you type in Ron, Burkle, you'll find him there. So Ronald Burkle is a billionaire investor, businessman. He lives out in the West Coast, but he has this company called Ukapa Companies, LLC, where 99% of their investments, at least real estate-wise, is in Manhattan. He has acquisitions including Fred Meyer's, Ralph's, Jurgensen's, A&P, also big investments in Whole Foods Market. So one possibility is that she goes with Ron Burkle. Now, why would I mention Ron Burkle? Well, Ron Burkle was also at the funeral of Mark Weiner, whose daughter Zoe Weiner, Candace Owens starts a company with. You should go through the list of people that were at that funeral. Ron Burkle was there. Ronald Burkle owned the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey team at one point. Ronald Burkle is a billionaire and among the top DNC donors, along with Zoe Weiner, along with Anna Wintour, along with Mark Weiner. Mark Weiner was given like $500,000 a year or something like that to the Democrat Party. He has a total monopoly of all DNC merchandise. And there's a whole lot of other people, as well as the Clintons, etc. This is the DNC political machine. And Ron Burkle was also at the memorial service 2016 for Mark Weiner. So if Ron Burkle, supermarket billionaire, is working with Whole Foods, including John Mackey, who, by the way, has a Joe Rogan episode, then it's very possible that Candace Owens worked with an investing company in New York, probably connected with Ron Burkle, a name that she doesn't like to say, which would have given her an opportunity to meet and then maybe develop some fondness or affinity for John Mackey of Whole Foods, who, by the way, right now is starting a company called Live Forever or some shit like that. The other possibility is that she worked for an investing company connected with Yusef Jackson. Again, one of the other sons of Jesse Jackson. It would make sense. Yusef Jackson was also a pallbearer for Mark Weiner, and Yusef Jackson also was involved in the purchase of Radar magazine from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, if you didn't think it was crazy already, trust me, my friends, this is where it gets even better. Let's type in Ron Burkle and Yusef Jackson. Because Ronald Burkle and Yusef Jackson are the two primary owners or shareholders of something called the Soho House, which is a social club. Now, Ronald Burkle became the primary owner in 2013. He's still on the board, but also on the board is Yusef Jackson. Yusef Jackson is also on the board right now of Soho House, which is worth several $1 billion, and they have 70 locations. Soho House is right now where all the conspiracies are breaking about Meghan Markle. And Meghan Markle is right now also one of the primary targets of Candace Owens. It is alleged that Meghan Markle was one of the ladies at Soho House during the time that Ronald Burkle and Yusef Jackson owned it. And I believe that the private equity company that Candace Owens doesn't want to tell people she was involved with from 2012, 13, and 14 was something related to Yusef Jackson and or Ronald Burkle, which puts her very much in the mix of knowing exactly what's going on at this Soho House. If you are interested in I'm not interested in all of this stuff about the princes and the kings and the queens and there are millions of people right now whose whole world is focused on Meghan Markle. And one of her people who hates her the most are Megyn Kelly, who she flips parties all the time, and Candace Owens. There's this photo that's been going around. Let's say Soho House, Meghan Markle yacht. Let's see if we can find this this yacht photo here. Images. Boom. This is a photo. No, that's the Blake Lively one. That's not the one I want, right? So this is supposedly Meghan Markle there. in the white hat. And I think that there's probably some truth to that. There's actually a lot of photos of Meghan Markle at Soho House. There's a lot of photos of her with this male escort, I think, or business guy who was at the Soho House, including this guy named Marcus Anderson. Why does this matter? I know you're probably wondering, okay, you can't really take it anymore. And I get it. Let's see here. Here we go. This is the one I'm highlighting here. So this picture here highlights the Ronald Burkle, again, who I think she worked for, I allege. Oops, that one doesn't exist. I'm going to have to open up the photo here. Of this is Meghan Markle, allegedly here in the white hat. Meghan Markle. And she's on this yacht photo with a woman named Karina Shuliak. Shuliak. Karina Shuliak is the last girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, you can find photos of Meghan Markle side by side with Karina Shuliak at Soho House, on the Soho House yacht. Soho House, owned by Ronald Burkle, also Yusef Jackson, an investor and on the board. Then these are all connections for Candace Owens. Candace Owens claims that she had inside access to Soho House photos that are going to tell something big about Meghan Markle. How the hell do you think she got those photos? She just called them up? Maybe she's either still connected with the staff there, was connected with the staff, I don't know. But if you look at every single explosive expose that Candace Owens is involved in, whether it's Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and there's Meghan Markle, they all involve this individual network. I believe this individual network is the meat and potatoes behind where she's getting all of these news drops from. And Candace Owens doesn't share this. She's never shared the name of the private equity company she was with before going back to Degree 180, or before starting Degree 180 in 2015. In fact, Karina Shuliak is the last person to talk to Jeffrey Epstein before he died, allegedly. There was a 15-minute unrecorded phone call where it's her testimony that he was definitely in the jail alive. And then like 20 minutes later, he was dead because he committed suicide. She's also one of the primary beneficiaries of the Jeffrey Epstein estate for whatever money is left over. She's Belarusian, by the way. She's also rather young, I think. You know what's also strange? She was born in 1989, and Candace Owens was born in 1989. There's a pretty good chance that Karina Shuliak and Candace Owens are friends, which would mean Candace Owens is probably friends. And I'm going to roll the dice a little bit. She's probably friends with the last person that talked with Jeffrey Epstein before he died. And you have been betrayed by how many hundreds of other incompetent, lying, bastardous, traitorous citizen journalists and researchers who are pretending to tell you that podcasters have your interest at heart. They don't. And what's going to drive this is because there are some people who hate Meghan Markle even more than they hate Trump. There is Markle derangement syndrome. There are people that hate Meghan Markle more than Jonathan Cooey hates Donald Trump. Just kind of ripping him a little bit. Happy birthday again. And eventually, these hatreds are going to collide. Anyways, going back to the Candace Owens timeline here. From Degree 180, she then starts, and she goes back with Zoe Weiner 2015 starts Degree 180. Then they come up with an idea for a product line called Social Autopsy, which is meant to discourage children from getting involved in online bullying. It's also an anti-doxing site. And this is where things get really interesting. And this is where the mistake happens. The mistake is that Candace Owens does not play video games. Actually, that's not a mistake, but it leads to a series of problems. Candace Owens is not really an online social media person. She just isn't. It's fine. Believe it or not, I'm not either. I'm a little bit more hip to it than she is. But anyways, so she gets some additional startup money, and they're going to do some fundraising as well to create a social media site, Social Autopsy, which can be used to collect information on people to help reduce bullying, online bullying or cyberbullying. Now, this is 2 years after Gamergate, which kind of starts in 2014. So what Social Autopsy is offering, and I think that the financial backers would include, because you have multiple billionaires involved here. You have Ronald Burkle. Yusef Jackson is not a billionaire, but he has access to many millions of dollars. She's worked at Vogue. She probably already knows Anna Wintour, probably not well. I don't think Anna Wintour is so many people are pursuing her time. I don't think Candace Owens would have left that much of an impression. I mean, that's seriously, with all due respect. I mean, if you're not like Giselle Bunchausen, you're not going to get Anna Wintour's attention. And that's fine. It is what it is, right? Anyways, the money would have come from someone like that. But when she starts it, it's anti-bullying. Now, note that Hollywood just released a movie called Bully, a movie that was made by by Miramax and Harvey Weinstein. So Harvey Weinstein, it's well documented, is the biggest funder, at least in Hollywood, of raising awareness and advocacy against bullying and cyberbullying. It's Harvey Weinstein. And Candace Owens just so happens, even though she's in the middle of this whole group, to start an anti-cyberbullying site. And it trips up with the people that were involved in Gamergate. And all of this drama happens. And Candace Owens blogged about it extensively in 2016. She wrote long blog posts where she was actually set up predominantly by the New York Magazine. By the way, people who are investors in New York Magazine include Tina Brown, friends of Harvey Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein himself. Jeffrey Epstein tried to do a takeover of it. Yusef Jackson was involved in it. So the fact that New York Magazine is involved in their attack is not a surprise, in the attack on her. And, of course, they're taking the side of the original Zoe Quinn Gamergate people, who are clearly more comfortably left. Candace Owens, for a moment, is left without an ally. So she writes these long blog posts, and I know things don't work out. The only people that notice what she's done is Milo Yiannopoulos and Mike Cernovich, who are associated with Breitbart and the alt-right movement. They're the only people that find her. And they think it's kind of cool that she's doing this thing. They don't really understand her network, though. All they know is they think it's kind of cool. So, but they don't hire her or anything. What we do know is that after a failed Kickstarter campaign, after a not so greatly received TED Talk, we know that it is in the fall of 2016 now, that now Candace Owens, for the first time ever, can't pay her rent anymore. This has been inaccurately passed off by some as evidence that Candace Owens just wants other people to pay her bills. I think that is a horrible, horrible interpretation of events. Candace Owens went so far as to say that the apartment she was in was causing her health problems, including some very personal and embarrassing ones. And that's what led to her not having enough funds to pay the bills. if you follow the timeline, she would have depleted her funds 2 or 3 months after this embarrassing escalation with the other people involved in Gamergate, meaning she was probably let go from social autopsy, degree 180, no more paychecks. I'm sure that the investors that were involved are like, sorry, you really screwed up, Candace. You really screwed up. You wrote these long blog posts. You made people mad, and you just go away. She couldn't pay her rent. She doesn't have any other skills. She probably didn't save money. Hard to save money when you're young. She couldn't pay her rent. She went 5 months without paying her rent. Suddenly, 2017 starts. Trump wins unexpectedly. And then something magical happens. Charlottesville. Now, Charlottesville is in the state of Virginia. Terry McAuliffe is the governor of Virginia, who, by the way, is also very good longtime friends with both Mark Weiner and the Clintons and Jesse Jackson. You can see things being seeded here. Like, isn't it crazy that, what's his name? Fuentes is being interviewed by Stefan Molyneux a week before the statues were spray painted. I mean, come on. It's all being organized. And Candace Owens now lands a job doing some videos. Hey, Mom and Dad, I'm now a conservative. Candace Owens also gets to go on the Stefan Molyneux show in September 2017, just after Charlottesville rally right now, and start to associate herself as a new friend of the alt-right. Candace Owens is on cloud nine. Maybe she has a job again. Not many people are subscribing to her videos just yet, but she might have a future again. They gave her a lifeline, which she doesn't have anymore. She kind of lost that lifeline. And then she's on the Rubin Report. And then there's this weird channel in Chicago, the AM 560, which is also a place that gave Robert Malone an interview opportunity. Also in the fall of 2017. And then in early 2018, actually May, she's on the Joe Rogan show. And at this point, now Candace Owens is suddenly like a vice president at Turning Point. How? She hasn't even been a conservative for 12 months. If she ever even became one. It wasn't even 12 months. Joe Rogan in this interview in May of 2018 says, Charlie Kirk, I've heard of him. Who is that? Now, I've listened to parts of this interview before, but in this interview, they both agree that Harvey Weinstein is a pig. But Joe Rogan then says at minute 20-something, Harvey Weinstein, it's only allegedly. Very interesting. Candace Owens, after the 1 hour mark, they talk almost 40 minutes about Gamergate and about Degree 180 and about online cyberbullying, which is very strange. I've sort of downplayed that part. And Candace Owens, this is the thing. Is Candace Owens being Truman Showed here? I think she's being Truman Showed. Because they really want to lean in. Because when Candace Owens talks about Degree 180, when she talks about social autopsy and anti-cyberbullying, I believe she really believes in it. She really believes that cyberbullying is bad. It's funny because look at what she does right now for a living. Huh? But at least she does it publicly. But she has an energy to her. You can actually see her perk up. Stand more upright. She gets more energy. She's really into it. They are really leveraging. They are taking her experience and they are leveraging it with a lot of precision here. Stefan Molyneux, Joe Rogan, and others have sort of created a partial Truman Show around Candace Owens. They know her strengths. They know that she probably pissed a bunch of people off. They also know she believes in this cyberbullying thing. But I think it's also generally known and agreed upon. I think Joe Rogan knows she didn't come out of nowhere. I think he knows she met some people along the way. Do you really think that he doesn't know she met Jesse Jackson by this point? There's just no way. Joe Rogan knows, I think, a lot more in this interview than he's leading on. Candace Owens may not know how much Joe Rogan already knows. The interview on its own, you don't need to watch it. But what it does is it sets up, and I have some very bad graphics here, so I'm sorry about that. But Candace Owens in what we'll do here is we'll go up to, I'll use this window over here. And let's just search for Candace Owens YouTube page. All right. And then in the Candace Owens YouTube page, let's just search for Weinstein. Candace Owens somehow or another lands the only interviews of anybody in the world with Harvey Weinstein over the last several years. As a journalist, it is Candace Owens' job to land unique and powerful interviews. But to be fair, Candace Owens really doesn't land that many. I don't land many either, but I'm not even trying at this point, okay? There's already so much publicly available that people don't even look at. There's already like a hyper abundance of things to look at that most people don't pay attention to. That I think the last thing we need is more. And everyone else is already doing it. So I'm not really looking to do that anymore. I'll take advantage of the journaling, which has been done by other people. But of the main people that she lands and is doing exposés on, it's Bridget McCraw, it's Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and the big interview that she loves to talk about, aside from other podcasters like Maya Yiannopoulos, etc., is Harvey Weinstein. Now, I erroneously have said in the past that there was a statement made in those interviews that suggested they'd known each other for a long period of time. I have to retract that. I don't think that's true. There's something about the way they are communicating where Candace Owens keeps saying Harvey, as if, which I think is a little weird. If I were interviewing Harvey right now, I think I would say Mr. Weinstein. I don't think I would just, unless he said, Harvey, please, Mark Kulak. I love your show, Houston Like That Live. It's the best show ever made. Please, just call me Harvey, all right? I wouldn't just transition to calling him Harvey. So it's just, so there's some oddness to it. I think there's a little bit of implied, familiarity with each other. But she lands these in 2025, where she actually talks to him in jail. And so there's a March one, and then it's like April, but the one that is most phenomenal, I think, is that she has on, let me see if I can find
it. Was it Robin Hood was?
Is that on July 30th, 2025, after what seems to have been a video series that she wasn't working on anymore, out of the blue, she does an update video. So there's a new video out with Harvey Weinstein, and she's interviewing him. And 2 days afterwards, she's then on the Tucker Carlson show talking about Harvey Weinstein. Okay. It feels as though they needed to release this. Now, it's possible that this update was recorded before it was released. But I suspect they wanted this update out there before her early August 2025 interview. This is Candace Owens on the Tucker Carlson show. Now, remember, Tucker Carlson also worked for Harvey Weinstein in 1999. Tucker Carlson worked at Talk Magazine for Harvey Weinstein for a year. And Tucker Carlson refers to Harvey Weinstein as a pig. And he says everybody knew he was a pig. How did he know? And by the way, he worked for him. Tucker Carlson admits that he knew Harvey Weinstein was a pig, probably raping and taking advantage of women, and he voluntarily chose to work for him anyways? What kind of a judgment is that? Now, Tucker Carlson could say, well, I never knew Harvey Weinstein, and I got to know him, and like, wow, I had to leave. That place was terrible, or something like that. That would be fair, but you can't just say, oh, I worked for him, but he was a rapist, or something like that. And Tucker Carlson kind of passes it off like that. Like, no, Tucker Carlson, you left a well-paying job at a national cable television to work for Harvey Weinstein. That was his choice. He must have known, if the allegations are true, which I don't know if they are or not, to be honest with you, but if the allegations are true, Tucker Carlson must have known. So now Tucker Carlson it's so weird. But anyways, throughout these interviews, Candace Owens is now turning into a Harvey Weinstein supporter, that he is being wronged by the accusers. And in these interviews, Harvey Weinstein says, Candace, the only people that are out there supporting me right now are you and Joe Rogan. He says it. Joe Rogan and Candace Owens. Two people that right now seem to be hating Trump more and more with every breath. Soon they're going to hate Trump as much as Jonathan Cooley does. Or worse. But anyways, getting back to Harvey Weinstein here. In this update interview, Candace Owens keeps pushing Harvey Weinstein. Like, Harvey, tell me, who do you think is doing this to you? Who do you think is causing all of this pain? Who do you think is setting you up? Who is after you? And Harvey's like, no, I just can't say. I just won't say. And it's all scripted. Because, of course, the whole point is to get people to lean into the television because and with incredible anticipation about what Harvey Weinstein's going to say. People want to know. So it's all staged. Here we go.
Went in, and this conversation would have been impossible a few years ago, but people are starting to see that this isn't a coincidence that this keeps happening.
This was
the same characters are involved from even
July 30th.
I mean, the New York Times
2025 release.
Justin Baldoni, they publish a piece absent a lot of information, and then suddenly the attack dogs are out in full force.
Well, even the New York Times in this situation, amazing as it is, with the investigation that's going on with the New York Times, they did a piece about the jurors and what the jurors went through on this trial. And they had 4 or 5 jurors and their testimony to the incredible nature of being threatened by one another during this trial. So,
I'm giving it like 5 minutes.
The New York Times.
Sorry, I'm putting a lot of audio in here. I think it's worth it.
A young man named Clark Patterson who just wrote an article about the New York Times and wrote an article about the 2 journalists who wrote the first hit piece on me. And I think if you tangle with the New York Times, you're dead. You know what I mean? They have infinite resources, and they will call up those resources, and they will go after you no end. And he wrote a piece, he had the courage to write a piece. It's in MSN, and it's on Medium. The full 17,000 words is on Medium. And nobody is out there rushing to publicize the fact that the New York Times original piece about me was wrong. And the Ashley Judds of this world and the Rose McGowans and all of what they said was bullshit. I mean, nonsense, excuse my language, and this reporter captured all that, but there's no public outcry, with his piece. But I think it's going to get there. I think slowly but surely it's working its way up through the system, but it's slow.
Yeah, and you will definitely find a sympathetic audience with my audience because we speak about this often. I think the only way that we can make sense of the present is to look at the past, and I have examined the New York Times through the lens of how they were created. I mean, we've been wrongly, I think, deluded to believe that journalists are sort of this like fourth estate, that they protect against corruption. They're a part of the corruption. Historically, the New York Times had a relationship with the CIA. That is just a fact. It is a fact that is available at anybody's fingertips. They are an extension of the state.
Candace Owens goes on to say that New York Times is the CIA. Mainstream media is basically the CIA. They're the fourth whatever as branch of the government. And then she says that's why we need podcasters. Because podcasters are independent, I guess.
And so that is why when I ask you those questions, and I was not surprised when they chopped up Justin Baldoni's lawsuit because he went after the New York Times. You can't win against the New York Times. Judges have lost going after the New York Times, saying that the New York Times was defaming them, as I've shown on my show. When I look at that, and I think that the New York Times was initially the people behind them went after you, I do think that you stepped on somebody's toes. Like there's somebody's toes that you stepped on that you may not have been aware of when you were in Hollywood because you had a lot of power. You had a lot of power.
I agree with you, Candace. Looking back on it, there are definitely people, I can't say who.
Why not? Why can't you say who? What do you have to lose?
Because I'm not sure that I'm right.
And you say, I think. Maybe.
I will say that I think there are people whose toes I stepped on, and I will also say I think there are politicians whose toes I stepped on, and as a result of the two forces mingling together, and you throw in the New York Times, and you have enormous prejudice against me, and an enormous fight against me, and an enormous I don't know what to say, just a force against me of all these forces coming together. But it's weakening. It's weakening. It's weakening because of you. And I can't tell you
Rogan.
that having done your interview, how many people come up to me in whatever little street cred.
He's referring to the interviews he did with her in early 2025.
Credence I have now. Cops come up to me, workers come up to me, wherever I'm at, wherever I'm out, people come to me and say, I saw you on Candace. I saw you on Candace. Keep up the good work.
Remember, Harvey Weinstein is also one of the bigger business partners of Steve Bannon. Remember, Harvey Weinstein was one of the first people to get COVID and live, earlycovidsurvivors.com. Another person on that list is Miley Yiannopoulos, who is also one of the people at Breitbart that reached out and saved Candace, throughout 2016, at least probably gave her some encouragement, and then was on her show countless times after that. Just saying. And Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein are also multiple-time business partners, including interests in magazines like Radar, which hired much of the staff that was previously at Talk Magazine. Not to mention, they're both on the cover of The Year That Broke America book by Michael Rice that came out 2 years ago about the year 2000, along with the Clintons, along with Janet Reno, along with Jesse Jackson, Bush, Gore, Donald Trump in the middle, and Dick Cheney. And, of course, the poor Gonzalez kid floating around in a tube somewhere off the coast of Florida.
Keep up your good work because you're cracking that system, and Clark Patterson is out there cracking that system too. It won't permeate forever, and it's not as strong as it thinks it is.
It's not, and we're seeing that the fraying is happening now. But I really want to push you on this point, Harvey, because I think it's very significant.
It's all staged.
Who were the politicians' toes that you stepped on? And we're not making any allegations against them.
And they really want this part out before Candace Owens gets a great big boost by Tucker Carlson in early August of 2025. And, of course, Candace Owens is really going to get a big boost after the, I believe, fake staged assassination of Charlie Kirk.
But it certainly is. It's interesting. It'd be an interesting rabbit for me to chase to know which politicians you think you may have upset, because I'm telling you, the New York Times is an extension of the state.
Well, I think that, with the Amber situation, I got off with not even a misdemeanor. I just got off with just an understanding that Amber was an unreliable witness. This is the woman who taped me, made the telephone call, set me up with the police officers, and the police officers wanted to prosecute me. And I think that as a result of me getting off, what I had was I got jurisdiction in Italy, and in Italy I got my people to go to the judge in Italy and open up sealed paperwork which admitted that when she was 17 years old, she was living in a house paid for by her pimp, $5,000 a month, and getting $1,000 a month sexual congress for having sex with this guy. Not her pimp, I guess her boyfriend, whatever, but she was paid for sex. And then she also went to a party, a bunga bunga party, with the Prime Minister of Italy, Berlusconi, and she also complained to the press about that. She later on said her boyfriend raped her in Italy, and she had huge press. So when this situation happened with me, she just wanted huge press, and she got huge press. She became a famous person. But when I got off, Cyrus Vance, who was the district attorney, was accused of leniency in my situation. And then when the New York Times published its piece, they went after me hell to leather. So I think Cyrus Vance was one of those people who wanted to see me,
Cyrus Vance, Vance. I do not believe he is related to J.D. Vance. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it. Cyrus Vance, or Cyrus Vance Jr., pictured here. He was the 36th District Attorney of New York County, born 1954. I guess that would put him in his age 71 right now. American attorney who retired politician who served as the District Attorney of New York County, previously a principal partner of the law firm, blah, 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 blah. Let's see here. He is the son of Cyrus Vance, who we're going to look at momentarily. His father was the Secretary of State for President Carter. In other words, this Cyrus Vance that was just mentioned, just sort of thrown out there after Candace Owens poked and prodded Harvey Weinstein for 5 to 6 minutes. That's why I played the whole clip. Who is it? Throw me a name. Give me a name. Please, Harvey, give me a name, just anyone. Who do you think? I don't know, just throw out there. He finally says Cyrus Vance. So he just happens to throw out the name of a guy whose father was formerly the head of the State Department under Clinton. Under President Carter. The same President Carter whose scheduling was handled by Mark Weiner. Whose daughter Candace Owens starts a company with. Because this is his father, who is also the general counsel for the Department of Defense for Kennedy. This is Cyrus Vance's father, Secretary of State under Jimmy Carter, 1977 to 1980. He was the United States Deputy Secretary of Defense in the Johnson administration. During the Kennedy administration, he was the Secretary of Army and the General Counsel for the DOD. Also involved with American hostages and Iran and all kinds of other shit. And his son is the name that Harvey Weinstein just happened to throw out there after prodding and prodding and prodding from Candace Owens. The same Candace Owens that says, you can't trust the New York Times because it's CIA. You can't trust this person because it's CIA. You can't eat at McDonald's because it's CIA. You can't eat at this because it's CIA. Jeffrey Epstein is CIA. Oh, the same Jeffrey Epstein that Harvey Weinstein is a business partner of. The same Jeffrey Epstein that dated a girl for 10 years, last phone call before he died, some Belarusian model dentist that is almost exactly the same age as Candace Owens. and is also the person right now that is leaking photos that prove that Meghan Markle is on this yacht with this club, this Soho club, this Soho house that's owned by Ronald Burkle and Yusef Jackson, who represent the two possible sources of the equity firm that Candace Owens worked for. Markle Houston Live, episode 1461, I think. Hello, Fletch. Hello, Reginald. Jeff, how you doing, Jeff? I think, you know what, Fletch? Thank you. And you know what, Fletch? I think that is pretty good work, Fletch. I think this is pretty good work. This is damn good work, if you don't mind my saying so. But this is not work that other people couldn't have done. I didn't go dumpster diving to find any of this stuff. Everything I have used is publicly available. Now, I will admit that I've had to go online and spend a pretty fair amount of money to get all of these old Radar and Talk magazine issues. And I know that there's a way that I could retell this in a more succinct way. I just don't know how yet. I just don't know how. But that's absolutely, it's remarkable. And I know that there's a whole bunch of things that I haven't even mentioned. How do I tell all that succinctly? I needed an hour and a half with the exhibits to list out all the facts. I don't know what to do. So I guess what's been building in me is this show. This is kind of like a knowledge dump show. I'm only going to clean it up a little bit tonight, and then I'm going to repost. Because I'm telling you what, it says 2 hours right now. I know that for the first 8 minutes, it was just mood music, letting people queue up a little bit. But that's absolutely, that's ridiculous. That's an unhinged amount of information. So the one thing on the timeline that I haven't mentioned, the last thing I will say, and in 10 minutes my dinner's going to be ready because my angel of a wife who's making so much of this possible is also now cooking me dinner. I've suggested before the Candace Owens decoder is to take what Candace Owens is talking about and start doing compound searches with that and India. Remember, Harvey Weinstein named his daughter India. Just saying. Also, Harvey Weinstein's wife is very good friends, longtime professional relationship with Anna Wintour of Vogue. Actually, they divorced in 2017. His wife is also a fashion designer, so she was also in this this mix as well. Candace Owens' real big boost happened after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, I am a pretty blessed man. I got your message. I haven't opened it yet, Christy, but thank you. I'm lucky to have Christy as a friend here. Candace Owens' real big boost and traffic happened after the Charlie Kirk assassination. I don't believe Charlie Kirk knew he was going to be killed that day. There's an abundant amount of evidence that Charlie Kirk was actually having a pretty pedestrian day. And my suspicion is that sometime around May of 2025, Charlie Kirk during a time that Candace Owens was on a break. She said she was on a break to deliver her fourth child. I don't know if that's true or not. I never saw any baby fat or, mommy fat come and go. But I believe Charlie Kirk, during some time, made some of the more strongest statements that I've seen out there, encouraging the United States not to get involved in a military conflict between India and Pakistan. And there were rising tensions militarily between India and Pakistan at that time. Now, if you noticed how social media works right now, nobody knows that India exists. People hear about China's bad. Israel's really bad. Iran is a problem. And then there's Ukraine and Russia. And you don't know the rest of the world exists right now. And the most populous nation in the world is India. India is part of the Commonwealth of Nations. And India is rapidly growing financially and is on a path to, in 10 or 15 years, become the largest economy on the planet. Maybe even a future home of the United Nations. So India is rapidly growing right now. If you watch Fox News, if you watch Redacted, if you watch InfoWars, if you watch any of India does not exist. Right now, there is a blackout on mentioning the existence of India. Now, India is not the only nation you need to. There is no such thing as it's the only other nation you need to pay attention to. But if there is one nation right now, which I think is in the top 3 easily, it's India. As a matter of fact, you might as well just not be paying any attention to global affairs if you're not going to factor in India. And Charlie Kirk, I think, made a serious mistake and made tens of thousands of people momentarily very aware of India. And I believe a request was made to get Charlie Kirk off the public stage. I believe the request was made that Charlie Kirk could never again be seen. Fake assassination, and I believe it was signed off on by Donald Trump. I don't think Charlie Kirk knew it was coming. And I think at the moment it happened, Erica Kirk was told, Charlie Kirk's parents were told, look, your husband is now in witness protection. Just move along as if he's dead. This will all get worked out. The people that were around Charlie Kirk at the time that he was shot, several people, I believe, are similar to the people that were around Trump when Trump was shot. I don't think Trump expected it either. People have different interpretations. I think someone pinged Trump with a BB gun. They tackled him, threw some fake blood on the ear, and then marched him out. I think with Charlie Kirk, I think they stunned him somehow. Could have been electric shock. I don't know. He fell backwards. And you notice how fast they tackled Charlie Kirk? If someone has just been shot, you don't jump on him. You jump on someone that's just been that just dropped dead. If you know they're not really dead. They probably on the ground right behind the table said, Charlie Kirk, I know that just hurt like a mother. Here's what's happening. We are carrying you out right now. You are now officially in witness protection. You are now officially dead, Charlie Kirk. We're carrying you out. Don't ask questions. They had a shooter to make it look like there's a lone gunman, and they took Charlie. So in other words, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was also about U.S. relations with India. You do realize that. Because the Trump assassination was about who the VP was going to be. And Trump was supposed to choose RFK Jr. Instead, after the staged assassination, which of course was a failure, there was enough political capital to tell RFK Jr. to step down, and they made J.D. Vance the new VP candidate. And J.D. Vance is unique because he's married to a born-in-America Indian woman who I believe, although I don't know of J.D. Vance's wife well, but my sixth sense tells me she is not anti-American. But I think J.D. Vance is just threading the needle. Where it's like, okay, they wanted somebody else. And look who RFK Jr. appointed. We have an Indian national running the National Institutes of Health. We have an Indian national running CBER. We have an Egyptian English national running our FDA. We have people from India, England, Egypt running our entire health institutes under RFK Jr. right now. Now, the United States is a land of many races and opportunities. But please, if you saw RFK Jr. make the NIH director, the Department of the Genomics or whatever, and FDA and CBER and everything else, a Chinese national, wouldn't you think that was strange? Hell, if they were all Israeli nationals, wouldn't you think that's strange? If they were all Ukrainian nationals, wouldn't you think that's strange? But no, they're all from India. The fake Trump assassination and the fake Charlie Kirk assassination are deeply connected, and it's because of the proxy war right now that the United States is involved in with, I believe, India and some loose association that's sort of wrapped around the United Nations. Unfortunately, Candace Owens is now squarely in the middle of it. I hope she realizes being born in America, mixed race, that her allegiance is, and I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. I don't give a shit about that. But let's just hope that she snaps out of this and isn't as blind as I fear she might be in this situation. That's my show for this evening. Thank you. Take care. God bless.